Herzlich willkommen zu deinem Podcast Why Yoga for More Body, Mind and Soul Awareness. Schön, dass du eingeschaltet hast. Ich bin Jessica Dieterich und zusammen mit Isabel Panther steigen wir jeden Mittwoch tiefer in die Welt von Yoga ein. Heute erwartet dich eine wundervolle, erfrischende Folge mit Leena, Yogalehrerin und Doktorin in Australien. Leena nimmt dich mit in ihre Welt zwischen der westlichen Medizin und Yoga und erklärt dir, warum diese zwei Bereiche gar nicht unbedingt widersprüchlich sind. Du erfährst, wie Leena Yoga Techniken in ihre Arbeit als Doktorin integriert. Wir sprachen außerdem darüber, was Schmerz bedeutet und wie du damit umgehen kannst. Diese Folge ist der erste Teil des zweiteiligen Interviews mit Leena. Nächste Woche sprechen wir über die 3 Körper und 5 Hüllen von Yoga und Pranayama aus der Sicht der Medizin und Yoga erklärt. Diese Folge ist auf Englisch. Auf YouTube findest du die Folge mit Video und deutschem Untertitel. Wenn dir diese Folge gefallen hat, dann schau auf unserem Instagram-Profil _whyyoga_ vorbei und kommentiere unter dem heutigen Beitrag, welche Erkenntnisse du mitgenommen hast. Wir freuen uns riesig über den Austausch mit dir. Und jetzt geht's schon los. Viel Spaß mit der neuen Folge.
Hello, Leena. I'm so excited that you're a guest in our podcast today. And yeah, thank you for taking your time and talk to me today.
Thank you very much, Jess. I'm very proud of this experience. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. And yeah, I feel very relaxed and really happy to be here and chatting with you after nearly 6 months of not seeing your face properly.
Oh, yeah. So for the listeners, Leena and I, we met during our yoga teacher training in Bali. And yeah, I just talked to Isa that we need to talk to Leena because Leena is, that sparkling into the group always. She's that person who has so much knowledge, and it's kind of, that present you get when you talk to her. So we were like, okay, let's talk to Leena a little bit about yoga. And I'm really happy that we found the time to talk to each other today. Before I talk more about you, I would like you to introduce yourself. So who are you, and how would a friend maybe describe you?
That's a really good question. Such a general question, but it points to a lot of sort of personal sort of things, right? So I'm Leena. I'm Australian. I'm 30 and I recently made a big move from city life into a small town now called Port Macquarie. In my day-to-day job, I am a doctor and currently am working in the emergency department during COVID, which has been very, very interesting. And my passion project away from work is yoga, everything yoga, embodying yoga and learning more and how to incorporate more of that into my life. In terms of how people see me, the first comment is usually, "You're so Australian." And you're really bubbly. So I like to see myself as someone who's quite open and is a good confidant and, is loyal and is generally pretty chilled out and happy-go-lucky. Because I think, sometimes you can't take life so seriously. We all do that. We all get caught up. But, it's not worth fighting the hard fight sometimes. It's more about getting curious and just enjoying every experience that comes your way.
Oh, so beautiful. And let's start directly with yoga. Like, why do you do yoga, and what's like your story about yoga, like how yoga found you?
So yoga found me about 6 years ago. And at that point in time, I was doing orthopedic surgery, very, very busy job. I was in complete denial about yoga because I experienced it once as a 16-year-old. I went a bit crazy in that class and hurt my back from it. And so after that, I was like, no, yoga will cause me injuries. I never want to do it again. And I was very proud and obviously had my ego, baking the entire time. And then slowly through over the course of time, I was doing ballet, and then I got into Pilates, and I got really bored of Pilates. And I needed to find another way of being able to deal with my stress through a physical practice. And it just literally led me into yoga. And initially, my feeling was like, wow, this is so hard. Like, I've never experienced something, the intensity within my own body to this degree before. And I think that was an initial draw card from a physical perspective, because I felt like I was getting a beautiful workout. And slowly I started noticing that I was like, oh, I feel really grounded and I feel really happy. I feel very, very content, and I sleep extremely well. After all of these yoga classes, I wonder what it's all about. And it's like the bait on the end of a fishing line. That there's the yoga is the bait, and you are slowly stretching more, and you're learning about yourself through your practice. And I realized that I started embodying more of a mental perspective, not just a physical perspective from the yoga asana. And it helped me acknowledge a lot of things about myself, about how to read my emotions instead of denying my emotions, and to be really honest with myself. Like often yoga teachers will cue you and say, only do this if it feels good for your body. Just because everything can be very complex, and just because you can do it doesn't mean that your body wants to do it right now. And can you be truthful to that? And it was through this process, it's like a process of unlayering. I really kind of felt addicted, and I fell deeply in love with it. That it forced me to really look hard at myself in the mirror and not hide away from any of the false images that I put, over the top of my soul. And then I decided to bite the bullet as I was transitioning from orthopedic surgery. It helped me realize that it was too much. And I ended up doing my yoga teacher training. I moved from a big city to a small town life. And now I'm doing my GP training, so general practice training, which I'm over the moon about, because it finally means that I can combine health and wellness from a holistic perspective rather than just pure Western medicine. Yeah, and obviously I get a balance with myself, and I can be happy most of the time, if not all the time.
Well, I feel it's so interesting what you just said, that like you're combining that work of medicine with the work of holistic yoga lifestyle, right? I don't know, do you have anything to talk, like an explanation? How does it work in your daily life? Like you have all that Western medicine in your brain, but at the same time you're adapting to this yoga philosophy. Like, is there anything you can talk about,
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I would say like Western medicine there's lots of grey areas, but it's all evidence-based. And the evidence is black and white until there's new emerging evidence that supersedes old evidence. And so it's a very practical format in terms of treating patients, and it definitely has its place in this world. I think what yoga brings to it is the colours rather than the shades of the black and white. And for me, what I mean by that is that the principles in yoga philosophy of being centered, of being grounded, of non-attachment, and ultimately, you know, one day reaching enlightenment, that all comes from within. And so whatever I process through yoga within helps me maintain a sense of calmness, a sense of compassion, and that emanates out through my interactions with my patients, and that they don't know that I'm a yoga teacher or that I practice yoga, but they just feel drawn because, you know, like I'm willing to listen to them instead of just categorizing them as yet another patient. And I'm happy to hear their story and really try and get down to the depths of why, you know, that they've presented this particular time. Like, was an injury, for instance, secondary to a stress-related trauma, and that they wanted to run away? Because if we just treat the injury, we're only just treating the surface of what their real problem is. And through deepening my own personal practice, it's like imparting little gems, you know, without even the patients noticing, just little gems of my own personal experience, or something that they may be able to apply in their life, in not only a practical perspective, but hopefully something that will benefit them for the long term. So I think they're synergistic. Yoga philosophy, embodiment of self and acknowledging self instead of denying self. You know, that mentality definitely works hand in hand with Western medicine. So that's kind of like that first part. And then the second part is through application of the actual physicalities of yoga. So subtleties like breath work, what we call as pranayama in yoga, it has its place as well in medicine, because how you breathe, how the body works, you know, that's completely aligned. It's just anatomy. But when you start paying attention to all of the little subtleties of the patient's physical body, how they breathe, and what manifests secondary to that, I think that gives you a lot of clues as a clinician as to what may be going on. So one of the things that is very common is reverse breathing, meaning that when you are inhaling, your diaphragm is lifting because all of your air is trapped in your chest. You are still sucking in your stomach, which many women do, when they're breathing in, instead of it coming from the belly. And that creates tension in your back, your neck, probably into your head, and it probably induces a sense of anxiety. And that probably propagates everything that social media is, you know, I guess, trying to promote, that a skinny and a very fit-looking person is healthy in their body, mind, and soul. But that couldn't be further away from the truth. And the more that I'm able to shine that light in that subtle aspect to patients, I feel like I can impart some element of truth into their soul. What are they denying themselves? Yeah.
Wow, there were so many good things already. I'm impressed. Really, thank you for sharing all your knowledge. What I was just wondering, when you have a patient and you see that person breathes wrong, like, how are you dealing with that? Like, what is your advice to that person?
Sorry, what was the word that you used for the patient?
I was wondering what an advice you give to that person when you feel like the breath is not going well, you know, like they breathe wrongly?
It usually actually starts with my examination.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously when you're taking a history, you find out more about the person, but in a very sort of methodical way. And then my favorite part is actually the abdominal examination, because sometimes we do have to use breath to be able to feel certain organs. And there was one characteristic patient that I met told this patient to inhale, and lo and behold, would suck in their belly, and which is reverse breathing. And therefore, I couldn't perform that particular exam. And I needed to educate this patient as to how to breathe. So explaining for the purposes of this part of the examination, and then later on kind of going back to that out of curiosity, just asking this particular patient, is this how you normally breathe? And this patient was generally quite an anxious and at times a little bit demanding. And just gently, like subtly encouraging this patient to explore the feeling of belly breathing to get full lung expansion, and describing and obviously utilizing what I thought was the best way to approach it at the time. So this patient was a firm believer of Western medicine, so being able to explain that from a Western point of view and an anatomical perspective helped shed some light onto the patient's understanding. And just, I don't know if I will see this particular patient, but I would be extremely curious to see if, their feeling of being more centered or feeling less stressed actually does occur. And hopefully when I transition into GP practice and I have develop a good rapport with patients that come through and through again, being able to see those effects, I think, for me, will be very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's such a nice position you have to, when you see the patient again, and then to see what changed. Like, did it work what I told the patient? And did they adapt, or is there anything I can do more? And I can imagine it's the same when you teach yoga, right? Like when you teach and you give a cue and you check the students, did that cue land? And then you get that response. Isn't it cool?
It is. And, I think in a sense, like being a doctor is also, it very much is being a yoga teacher, because you're there to educate other human beings and to help shed some truth or some light onto their behaviors or their traits that are leading them to be really unwell. Like, sure, sometimes accidents do happen. I'm definitely not denying that, but I mean, with chronic related things, like it may be a lifetime habit of, eating very unhealthily. That is a vasana. That is something where, there is a tendency in your mind to want to eat in a particular way that is not good for yourself. And even if you know that, the tendency in that habit is so strong that it encourages the ego and the lower intellect to completely embody that without them being able to help it, per se. And so shedding that sort of light and trying to understand the root cause, and knowing that we are in a position, we're in a very, very lucky position of, in a sense, respectful power, I suppose, where that maybe through personal experience or through education that we can shed that light and maybe get patients or to get students to actually take a look at themselves and see what they're denying themselves or what, they hadn't been made aware of yet. And no judgment at all, like no dramas. It's just, providing this sort of casual advice. by the way, have you noticed this before? And, you know, getting them to do the rest of the work. And when they want to know more, they will come back.
Yeah, so beautiful. I just got in mind, I listened to one podcast interview with Elizabeth Gilbert, that's the author of Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah.
And she said something so beautiful. Pain is the best teacher, because pain is pointing out what you need to shine the light on. And it was like, yeah, true, pain is my teacher. Like, if you see that in a different light, I don't know, it opens new horizons, right?
But I think also too, you have to acknowledge the pain, because many people will deny themselves of acknowledging the pain and will manifest anger, denial, fear around it, and will want to run away and not do the work. Mm-hmm. So I think it's, you know, for me, I feel like it's a duty to just create awareness that it's okay to feel pain, and that this too shall pass, right? That, you know, pain is our biggest teacher, but in order for it to educate and to you know, transcend all of that, you need to sit in it and you need to be aware of it, and you can't run away. So it's finding that strength.
Yeah. I was wondering if you were first a doctor before you came into the world of yoga, right? So I was wondering, was there a point of your yoga relationship when you were like questioning, like, no, it can't be, because medicine is so scientific and it's explaining me that way and it doesn't work out, those both? Or you never had that situation, everything made sense for you?
So what I would like to say is that in the vast majority of situations, yoga and medicine are very synergistic. But then when you start dabbling into really deep yogic stuff, so what I mean by that is, just for the listeners, I just completed a 50-hour advanced yoga teacher training online, called The Subtle Practices with Creature Yoga in Byron Bay in Australia. It was fantastic. And we learnt all about all of the deep, juicy philosophical things, and your mind-body complex, all, like, every single little minutia. And one of the little minutiae are your nadis. And nadis are, I guess, points all around your body that all interconnect, creating like an energy line. And there's two main channels, and then there's a central channel. And the two main channels are Ida or Ida, and the other one Pingala. So one representing feminine, the other one representing masculine, sun, moon, all of those types of things, activity and rest. And I think they mentioned at one stage that the whole digestive fire came from the sun energy channel. And it got me thinking. I was very confused, because I was like, oh, but, you know, my Western brain is thinking that this is all parasympathetic, resting and digesting. Shouldn't it be the moon channel, not the sun channel? And I got told the most honest thing, that I can't, I'm not as good as recalling the exact quotes as you are, Jess, but essentially it was that life is full of paradoxes, and sometimes there are paradoxes in yoga that have come from really ancient times, and you just have to accept it. And, you know, like, sometimes you will disagree, but that is okay as well. You know, and just be cool with it. You know, you don't need to intellectualize everything. because there's probably something else and a deeper philosophy that I probably have not been made aware of, that has made this a particular reason. And, you know, just understanding the broader complexes that they're trying to teach is probably what the bigger picture is calling for. So that was probably the only time. The rest of it has been very nice.
Yeah, I like that what you just explained, because it's like just being open for new things, and even though you don't understand, just let it be there, right? It's like that openness that everybody needs. It's also when somebody has another opinion, right? And you don't agree with that opinion, but it's just about accepting, because there are so many opinions out there. Well,
absolutely. You know, and Rose Borden, who is one of the main teachers in that teacher training, she says, you know, like, I am not the governing authority. My experience and my opinions are simply through, you know, what I've done through the course of my life, through undertaking multiple teachings and digesting and assimilating them. And just because this is what my personal opinion is on this doesn't necessarily mean that you need to hold the same view, but you need to experience like what you want to experience. Keep an open mind, listen to other people as well, and formulate what your own opinion is after you've collected all of that information. So I think, yeah, that point is so true in every way, shape and form, for life, for yoga, for whatever.
Yeah, interesting. Let's go back to your own yoga practice. Like, I know that you're practicing for yourself, but you're teaching also. Like, what is there right now in your own practice that you're dealing with, or what you're focusing on? Let us be part of your own yoga practice a little bit.